there, everyone. Welcome. Carolyn Russin, professional life coach here, coming to you from the shores of Lake Huron. I know one of these days, I'm hoping that when I'm up here, it's actually really nice and calm, because then I'll do the Facebook Live from down on the beach. But because it's a big lake and the waves, it's too loud. You wouldn't be hearing me. So anyway, I'm on the other side of the cottage. So hope you are doing well. I know today's topic that we're going to talk about, hi Mickey, is about reinventing yourself after 40. And I'm sure everyone has had these thoughts at some point in your life after you've reached 40 of, what could my life look? How could it look different? Hi, Christine. What would I want to change about myself? What would I want to change about my life? And sometimes some people love to think of those things, and some people it scares them because it's just a little fearful thinking of that unknown and change and all that. So when I think back, and I think back to when I have to think back here to about 41, I had a major change. And some of you know this about me, about all the concussions that I suffered and how my career completely pivoted. And I went from being a vice principal and to suffering day in and day out with all these concussion symptoms, like for years. But it gave me an opportunity, and yet forced me at the same time to look at reinventing my life, which is how I got to where I am now today. So I've lived this. I know how it feels. I know that scariness, that pit in your stomach of, holy crap, like if I don't change anything, what's my life going to look like 5-10 years from now? And that's a question I ask a lot of women in this group who, when they're not happy, okay, so if nothing changes, hi Tanya, what will your life look like 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now? And the look of panic and fear on their faces, hi Sandra, says it all. When they're not happy and knowing, okay, if I'm not happy now at 40, 50, 60, whatever your age is, if nothing changes, how is that going to feel further down the road? So I want to challenge you today about reinventing your life and what that could actually look like for you. And, one of the big things is that we carry around a whole lot of crap, and it influences everything today. It controls everything today, because this crap, whether this is major trauma from your past or just the regular day in and day old crap that we can carry around with us, it affects how we see things. It affects our perception of things that happen and how we interpret things, which then affects the choices that we make. It affects the decisions that we make moving forward. So these past burdens affect everything today. So imagine if you could dump that, and how empowering that could be for you. Hi, Erica. And it could just free you from so many of these things so that you can look at things differently. So when you're not being held back by these past burdens, you're not confined to this box. That was my problem, was once I had this accident and I lost my career and all this, I couldn't think outside the box. I couldn't think of, well, who else am I? Who else can I be other than a vice principal and a mom who, in my mind, at that point, wasn't enough? Right or wrong, that was what was going on in my brain. But I couldn't think outside the box. So how could I succeed? How could I make changes that were wonderful? And so by dumping all these burdens of the past, it opens things up. So you can see through almost different lenses and get a whole new perspective of where you're going and how you could get there. The next thing, reinventing yourself, could be about just silencing that negative chatter. We all have this mind chatter. We all talk to ourselves in our heads. We're always asking questions. And the reality is, most of the times, we ask horrible questions. Questions like, why does this always happen to me? Why can't things be easier? Why can't I have more money? Why can't I have more love in my life? Why? And sometimes if that's all we're focusing on, that's all we're going to see. Maybe it's, what am I supposed to learn from this? Yeah, this was crap. What happened to me was horrible. It is not fun. It's tough to get out of. But what am I supposed to learn from this? What's my takeaway? So changing that negative mind chatter into something positive, something you can learn from, and turning down the volume, because we're our worst critics. And so we don't need to hear this constantly. The next thing I want to talk about too is redefining old rules. So things that used to be rule in the past, is it really true? Does it still make sense to be a rule now? Because often we grab onto these rules in our childhood that back then made sense. Today, they don't make sense, but they're so ingrained in us that we don't even realize. So when you work with somebody else, when you work with a coach or a therapist or a counselor, they can help you see that. They can help you address, okay, well, that doesn't make much sense, does it? Or what is your rule? I often ask my clients, who want to feel more love in their life. Wonderful. What would that look like for you? What has to happen for you to feel more love? And often the rules we have are crazy, but we create these rules in our subconscious so we don't really think logically, does this make sense, until you start digging and you get to that. The next thing I want to talk about is just mastering your time. One of the things that so many women talk to me about is, Carolyn, I just don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. And it's really looking at, okay, it's not the quantity, but the quality. So what is it that you're doing with your time? Because, and I was totally guilty of this too, years ago, of just being busy for the sake of being busy. And in the time, in the moment, everything I was doing was so important. So important. This bathroom's got to get cleaned. It's filthy. I've got to do this. I got to pick up some groceries. I've got to, all these different things. I got to take this kid to this class, and taking that time for myself, just to stop and breathe. Maybe to carve out some time for me to do something fun. Never happened. So again, it's perspective, and it's looking at what's important, what can be pushed aside. How can we carve out that time? And maybe we already have that time, but we're wasting it. We're sitting and scrolling for a few hours. We're playing mindless games, and there's a time and place for that too. But sometimes we have that time, but we aren't being proactive in how we use it. Hi, Leanne. So what would this really mean for you? What could this actually give you? So being more purposeful in how you exist and you spend your time. Imagine feeling more fulfilled and calm. That's a big thing. Imagine, being able just to take a few breaths and feel calm and not feel that panic, stress, anxiety, whatever normally lives in here or in here, but feeling calm. One big thing I find that I'm constantly reminding moms is you are a walking role model for your daughters, for your kids, but especially your daughters. So when I ask clients who are feeling so stressed and overwhelmed and just not happy, I'll say to them, is this how you want your daughters to live their lives? And of course they look at me like I'm crazy, hi Joy, and say, oh, of course not. And I'm like, but you are the walking role models for them. So if this is all they see, if they see that mom never prioritizes herself, that mom is always sacrificing herself for other people, that's what they're going to think is normal. That's how they're going to think mom should be, and they will repeat that cycle. So when you stop and think, wait a second, I'm being watched, and you are. Even if your kids are older, even if you think your kids don't care what you think, feel, or say, trust me, they are watching and they are listening and they take it in. I'm surprised at times the things that my kids say to me, especially my daughter, who I think, oh, she doesn't really look at me as a role model. Oh, yes. Then the things that come out, I'm like, ooh. Oh, I didn't realize you picked up on that. And so realize that they're always watching, always watching. Just controlling your choices as you're moving forward. It's not like another analogy I often use with clients is, if you feel you're at the top of this water slide and you have so many influences around you that you can't control, it's like you just, way you go on the water slide and you just throw up your hands like, nothing I can do. And away you go. And there's that spiral, that crazy spiral. But we do have choices. And it's recognizing that we do have choices, and we can stand up for ourselves, and we can speak up for ourselves, and we need to. That's so important. So if any of this intrigues you, give me a thumbs up. If you've thought to yourself, you know what, I wonder what it would feel like to reinvent myself. I wonder what that could look like. Give me a thumbs up if you've ever had that thought cross your mind. And so all of these things, these are all possible. All of these things can happen. I've seen it happen. I've seen it time after time after time with clients. And, if you want to hop on a call, absolutely. You can type me below. I can easily set that up. No problem. I can talk to you about what this could look like. No strings attached. There's no pressure here. And that's what, if you talk to any of my clients, they know, I don't pressure anyone into any of this. If this intrigues you and you think, yeah, this is for me, and we click, away we go. If you're like, no, I just want to learn a few strategies, Carolyn, that's great. Fine. No problem. We're good. So if this intrigues you, type me below. But think of what this could look like. Give yourself 5 minutes and just dream and imagine, what could my life look like if I started prioritizing myself? If I started thinking about what gives me joy? If I started thinking about what I want my daughter to see as a positive role model? Just thinking of those things, and let your imagination just soar. Anyway, I hope this has been helpful. Have a fabulous day. I know I've got a number of client calls this afternoon, but hoping for a really nice sunset walk on the beach tonight. Anyway, take care.